Oh no. And hello, folks. I'm just trying the setup again for the LinkedIn Live and the YouTube Live channels. And I can see that out of the corner of my left eye that the YouTube channel's certainly firing on all cylinders. I'm hoping, oh, there it is, now live on Martin Daubney. That's great. I hope you heard that. So why waste an opportunity? Let's have a quick chat. Let's talk about behavioral styles. In fact, behavior in general. I like to help people understand that behavior isn't just this thing that comes out of your body and everybody sees it and either has to accept it or not. And quite often people will tell you when the behavior that is going on from you it isn't acceptable. Oh no, I've got another warning. What's that? Okay, that's nice. Um, so the behavior has to be appropriate. Now, there's things about behavior that are really important, and they can get in the way of us getting our goals, meeting our targets, doing the job that we have to do, or they can actually help us, which would be rather nice. One of the things early on in understanding and learning about neuro linguistic programming, NLP, is that we all have the resources available inside of us to do what we need to do. We all have every everything we need to do. We can access the resources to do that. If we look back at things that we didn't do too well, we might wonder what got in the way. Why didn't we access the thing we needed to access in order to be able to do that thing well? And it's because you weren't in the right place emotionally, the right state, as they call it. The emotional state is vitally important. If you can think of extremes on that spectrum, people who lose it, get really angry. You've only got to go to YouTube and type in police getting angry. Hang on a minute. Police getting angry. You'll know that you'll see people totally losing it in order to get what they think is the appropriate outcome for what they want. So emotions, love them or loathe them, are hugely important in behaving at the best we can. I kind of like to ask people, how are they? Because most of the time when people ask, how are you? They very often get an answer that's just not even touching the surface. It goes along, yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, all's good. Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. Not too bad. Of course, we're British. Well, I am at the moment. Um, Being British, not too bad because, as Bill Bailey put it, things could get worse. In fact, he put it even better. He said that not too bad, all things considered, is something else that comes up. All things considered, yeah, not too bad. And think about that statement for a minute. All things considered, like how did India get to land on the south pole of the moon? All things considered. Um, is random theory truly random, or is there a bias in it somewhere? All things. It goes on. There's a big list, but the not too bad bit is fairly common, particularly in the UK, because we're kind of pessimistic in our outlook on life. In that, yeah, not too bad, um, because it could get worse. And you know, I don't want to be get political or anything here, but things aren't as good as they used to be. Therefore, they have got worse. So maybe that's an outlook that's true. I don't know. Anyway, not too bad. Good, fine, all right. Occasionally, we hear an awesome. I'm feeling awesome, which is magnificent, isn't it? You can be in that awesome state. But I think it's a truism that no, and I haven't met anyone yet who said they do this, but nobody wakes up on a Monday morning. I mean, many people wake up on a Monday morning and go, oh, work. Okay, well, then there's another conversation. We need to have a conversation about why you feel about work. Um, there are things in work that you must surely enjoy, otherwise you wouldn't rock up every day. Um, so, but you wake up in the morning and you don't think, I haven't met anyone who thinks, today I'm going to be pretty average, I'm just going to scrape by. Today I'm going to go under the radar and not get noticed by the boss. Most people wake up and we want to be the best version of ourselves. This is where a lot of inner work gets done because people get stuck knowing they can do better, but keep getting blocked and patterns of behavior get in the way. So we try very, very hard or have an intention, wake up full of the joys of spring. Maybe not after a good night's sleep. If you wake up tired, talk to me. We can talk about that. Um, but if you wake up refreshed and go, yeah, okay, I'm up, I'm getting up, I'm doing my press ups, I'll have my fruit breakfast and um, a non-dairy product and have black tea or whatever it is you do, and then go to work, trying to be the best that we can. And that there, that being the best that we can, the can bit is very much reliant on the emotional state you're in. You see, a behavior, what people see of you in the room, comes from your neurology and your physiology. And that's affected by all sorts of things. So you have a thought. A thought comes out, I'm angry, boom, I display anger. A thought, that's a great thing. That makes me joyous. I show joy, I show happiness. But the thought comes with a feeling. We recognize the feeling, the sensation of the emotion, not the emotion, it's the sensation that we feel in our body, which drives the thoughts, which comes out as the behavior. And I'm sure you've recognized that sometimes thoughts and feelings have a little bit of a turnaround inside, a little bit of a tussle. They have a inner fight, um, whereby you might feel like having an ice cream because it's hot. And I've got to tell you, there's a store near us that sells their own brand of um, caramel vanilla type ice cream. They should be banned. They're highly addictive. Thank goodness I don't live near to them and occasionally get one, but I could easily eat two. They're just so ultimately gorgeously delicious. Um, so you think about, oh, fancy an ice cream. I feel like having an ice cream, particularly a nice caramelly one. Um, but the thought goes, no, Martin, don't. Whatever you do, don't, because it's sugar and that's going to cause inflammation in your system. And inflammation causes a release of cholesterol to patch up the inflammation. And then you get cholesterol plaques. And then the cardiologist thinks you've got high blood pressure and all this sort of stuff. And not only that, it's a ton of calories there. And those calories aren't going to give you any nutritional value. Um, so they're just going to sit in your fat cells. What was the phrase? A moment on the lips is a lifetime on the hips. It's not strictly true. You can work it off, but the pleasure of getting those calories in and that taste and that, I think it's Unilever experience and have an in-mouth experience for their products. So what's the in-mouth experience is through the roof. The joy of having this thing is lovely. The getting rid of the excess baggage afterwards is the pain. So you get all the joy first, and then you have to deal with the pain. So this tussle between I feel like one and I know I shouldn't, the thought and all that, very often gets overridden by your subconscious mind and the patterns of behavior that have been ingrained in the neurology because the neurons that fire together wire together, and you have this super highway rush that goes ice cream. Yes, thank you. It's in my hand and I'm enjoying it. So we need to stop that. So that happens with behavior. That's the behavior. The feeling goes through the thoughts, comes out as behavior. But the feeling comes from, and here's some debate. I've been in both sides of this, and I don't know which comes first. It's a chicken egg thing. Is it your physiology informs the feeling, which informs the thinking, which comes out as behavior, or emotion? And there's a huge amount of evidence to suggest it's the emotion. But there again, you can influence the emotion with your physiology. So if you feel, for example, that you're rather overjoyed today and you're full of the rites of spring and even in the middle of summer, and you're bouncing around like there's not a care in the world and people are looking at you, a bit weird. Well, you can bring yourself down just by being down. There's a great Peanuts cartoon many, many years ago. It's Charles Schultz. He was genius. But there was Linus, I think, who was walking around and his head was down. Maybe it was Charlie Brown. I don't know. And they said, "So what's wrong with you?" He said, "I'm too happy today. I need to bring myself. I need to feel a bit down." So you look down, you feel down, your shoulders slump, you become down. Amy Cuddy, in her famous TED talk, talks about expanding yourself into be the biggest physical version of yourself for 2 minutes, and that will elevate your mood. And there have been many studies about people being told bad news. So you ingest a little bit of bad news, and your physiology adopts that that mood. So that way, the emotion came first. You're given some bad news. It stimulates an emotion of, say, sadness, and then sadness affects your physiology. So there again a little bit of tussle. But the good news is you can actually take charge of both of those things. I'm not going to say ignore the emotion ever. It's information. Emotions are just information in your body. Your job is to interpret them and decide, here we go, whether or not it's the best emotional state for you to be in at that moment that you need to be at your best behavior. And if your emotional state isn't offering you the opportunity to be at your best, to have your best behavior, then you have an opportunity to change it. Um, Now, there's obviously some debate around that, and if you agree with me, great, stick something in the comments. If you disagree with me, bring it on. Let's have a discussion. I'm not saying I know everything. I've got lots to learn, so help me learn. I want to learn more. So the idea is that um, let's imagine we're driving a car, and there's an idiot driver, because there's always an idiot driver. It's never you or me, because we're better drivers than most people. There's a confirmation bias going on there. Don't know. Um, and we see someone do something stupid, or where I live, in a particular part of Europe, I'm not going to say too much, but there is a very uncomfortable habit of young drivers, typically, driving very close behind. And in my head, and when I learned to drive, I learned about stopping distances. Now, maybe technology's moved on a bit, but still there's that human reaction bit between paying attention, seeing what's happened, and taking action to stop the car if I have to stop suddenly. And most of the time, I'm looking in my rear view mirror and think, if I have to stop suddenly, there's a collision happening, and it'll be into the back of my car. So that kind of gets me in a agitated state. I get a bit um, concerned by what I see in the rearview mirror, and I don't like it, and I start to get maybe a little bit anxious, maybe a little bit fearful, and all that. But that's not the best behavioral state to be in to drive safely. So here's the trick: acknowledge it. You have to acknowledge the state you're in. You have to be aware of, I recognize that my heart rate's gone up, that my palms might be a bit sweaty, or even my forehead might be leaking a bit. Let's have another scenario. Imagine you have to do a presentation, and it's pretty important presentation. You work for a large company, and you're fighting for some funding for a project, and the audience that you're standing in front of, about 500 people, and within that audience is the board of directors of your company. The C-suite are there. They're all having an opinion on what they hear, and mostly, rightly or wrongly, they're in the C-suite, but mostly they have a leadership style behavior that isn't very humanistic, encouraging. See a previous video for that. So, understandably, you're on the back foot. The anxiety is rising. Now, anxiety, right? This is great, and this actually happened. I had a client come into me and talk about this very scenario. She then went on to say, this is kind of scary, a neurologist, then went on to say, don't worry, I'll just pop a benzo, um, which is short for benzodiazepine, which is kind of a Valium and other products along those lines, to take away the anxiety. Except they don't, and they have an awful lot of other effects, which are very, very similar to being overstressed, like drowsiness and fuzzy head and so on and so forth. And one tablet doesn't do you any good anyway. So stop it. If that's you, stop it. Um, if you've been doing it for a long time, stop it with your doctor's consent. So the anxiety thing, this is something else I learned from neurolinguistic programming, and it's kind of sweet. When you recognize yourself panicking a little bit, just recognize it and go, anxiety, thanks for popping up again. You're here for a reason. And the reason is it's to warn you to start focusing on what you want to happen. So you're going to change your emotional state. You're going to recognize the emotional state you're in, which is not very helpful. And then you're going to change it to something that is more helpful. And anxiety is really whenever you think you're anxious about something, it's like, oh, well, this is going to mess up, or that can't happen, or I'm going to forget my words. I don't know what I'm going to say. I won't be able to answer any questions. All those things that happen to us and go through everybody's mind, mostly when we do presentations, because we're human and it's survival and it's about making sure we're safe. And if we put ourselves out on the stage, we're very vulnerable and therefore open to attack. It's not natural. Um, Personally, I love it because I got over it. So you then have this anxiety state, and in your head, or even if you want to out loud, go, "Great, thanks for showing up, anxiety. Hang on a minute, you're here to warn me about what I want to happen." Because stop focusing on what you don't want to happen and start focusing on what you do want to happen. And in the presentation example, just imagine, just through your mind's eye, just imagine that you've gone through and you've done a great presentation. People have applauded. You've got great questions. You've answered those great questions. And then you're now 10, 15 minutes after the event and you look back. Just imagine yourself looking back at that event that you just did really, really well, focusing on all the things that you want to happen to go well. And then ask yourself, where is the anxiety? Well, it's gone. It has to go because the event's gone and it's gone very, very well. So that's an example of shifting your emotional state to something that is going to help you rather than hinder you. Now, there are other ways of doing that, and there's a lovely exercise that I can take you through, not here, not now. But if you'd like to know more about that, just let me know. There's lots of ways to contact me in the LinkedIn profile. And if this resonates with you and you'd like to like it and share it, I'd be delighted if that happened too. Um, this was a spontaneous LinkedIn Live, partly to test the software that I'm using and partly to get used to doing LinkedIn Lives. I do a regular LinkedIn Live on a Wednesday morning. So look out for the notices there if you like this. Share it amongst your friends, family, the cat, I don't care, whoever turns up, be great. And I look forward to seeing you on one of those. Like, comment, share, and have a good week. Take care.